Nendra, everyone. Uh, Swami Samni ji. A hello and welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining JCSF weekly program uh, online. Today, we are continuing the series uh, of lectures on Science and Jainism, which is coordinated by Professor Samni Chaitanya Pragyaji and Dr. Samni Hem Pragyaji. Today is the fifth lecture of this series, and four lectures have been successfully completed with a very positive feedback. Today is the fifth lecture, and the guest speaker is Professor Rajmal Jain, and the topic is science and nonviolence. And we are really looking forward uh, to hearing him out. Without further ado, I'll pass this podium to Professor Neptune Srimal, who does not need any introduction. Um, but I'll say this, that he is the advisory council member of JERF. Neptune ji?
Thank you, Mohit. Venerable Samanijis, Professor Rajmal Jain, and all of you, Swadharmi Bhais, and everyone that's present here today. It's my distinct pleasure and honor to introduce today's speaker, Professor Rajmal Jain. Professor Jain is a scientist, an author, a Jain scholar, and a social worker, all in one. In that sense, he is uniquely placed to interpret our ancient Jain principles in the light of modern science, and which he'll be talking about today. Professionally, Professor Jain is an astrophysicist of international repute. He specializes in the study of our sun, particularly our sun. He was associated with a very unique solar observatory in Udaipur, the Udaipur Solar Observatory, which is situated in the middle of a lake and is very similar to one we have in USA also, so that it does not get interference from the heat waves from the ground. And in that, he has made many important discoveries. For example, he discovered presence of iron and nickel in the solar corona for the first time. So he's been the director of the Udaipur Solar Observatory, and he has many accomplishments and many research to his credit. I can name only a very few here. I mean, if I go through all of them, possibly, he won't have time for, his talk at all. But just to name a very few, Dr. Jain is the principal investigator in the Solar X-ray Spectrometer mission of the Indian Space Research Organizations that we call as ISRO. And he's also an honorary professor in the very famous Physical Research Laboratory in Navrangpura in Ahmedabad. He's a life member of the International Astronomical Union and also for the Committee for Space Research in Paris, France. And he's the editor of two very reputed international journals in the field of astrophysics. These are the Journals of Space and Radio Physics and the Asian Journal of Physics. He's also a visiting professor at the National University of San Marcos in Lima, in Peru. So you can see that his scientific activity, encompasses not only India, but internationally. Professor Jain has been very prolific with his publications also. He's author of 3 books on popular astronomy and solar physics, and he has published more than 100 papers in national and international journals. He also has contributed 5 chapters in books and publications related to solar space physics. But it's not only an accomplished and a famous scientist, that's the only introduction of Professor Jain. He, despite being a scientist of such high repute, it's really heartening that he has also dedicated his time and energy in the service of the Jain Samaj, of the Jain society in general. He is the vice president of All India Digambar Jain Heritage and Preservation Organization, which is part of the Sri Bharat Bharshiya Digambar Jain Mahasabha in New Delhi. He is the founder president of the Ahimsa Mission Foundation of Ahmedabad, and he's a life member of the Federation of Hummar Jain Samaj in Ahmedabad. We are all really very, apart from this, we are all very impressed and intrigued by his discovery of Jain temple, of Chandra Prabhu temple, a very ancient Jain temple in the Yaha region of Ethiopia in Africa. I think, that itself deserves another lecture sometime. Now, during his academic and social involvements, Professor Jain has received a number of very top awards and honors, both for his work in the fields of science as well as for his service to the Jain Samaj. He has been a fellow of the Royal Astronomical Society, that's a great honor, of UK, and he has received the prestigious Lifetime Achievement Award by the Madhya Pradesh government in 2013. He is unique that he has received award not only from MP, he has received awards from 3 different states in India. He received awards from the governments of Gujarat and Rajasthan also. The Jain Samaj itself honored him with the Saraswati Putra Award in 1996 and the Jain Ratna Award in 2010. So we all know about Acharya Mahapragya. He was born in Jhunjhunu in 1920. So this is birth centenary. And we know about Acharya Mahapragya that even though he did not go through any kind of formal schooling, he had mastered subjects such as history, philosophy, logic, grammar, physics, Ayurveda, political science, economics, social science, different aspects of science and humanities. And one thing he was very fond of saying, that non-violence, peace, and food can go together only when the intellectual and economic and spiritual quotients are developed in a balanced manner. So today's lecture by Professor Rajmal Jain brings together the harmony between ancient wisdom and modern science, between the intellectual and the spiritual aspects of our heritage and of our mind. So what better tribute can there be to Acharya Sri's legacy than lectures of this kind from people like Acharya Rajmal Jain. We are really very fortunate to have this lecture from him today. So without much further ado, I invite Professor Jain to illuminate us with today's lecture on the science and non-violence. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Neptune. Thank you, other participants. First of all, I would like to say thank you very much. And I'm really very sincerely grateful to Shramani ji, Chaitanya Pragya ji, to inviting me for this lecture and spend today some time with all of you. What I would like to say in my talk is very briefly this philosophy of non-violence, and much more than related what kind of modes and methods which we are adopting the whole world for the violence, and what are the really researches have been done on these issues of violence, which have been endorsed, but we have not done much work as a tool to use these researches to spread the message of non-violence in the world. So the science part should have been used to spread, propagate the message of non-violence along the whole world, but this has not been done. So if I can go back to my presentation PPT, is it there now or again I have to reload?
Yeah, you have to load it. Please share it from your phone again.
Okay, again I have to, I will share it.
Yeah.
Okay, here it is. Can you see now this, my PPT?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. So basically, in this presentation, as I told, I will cover very little, very briefly, the philosophical definition and description of non-violence. I don't know what is this message.
या आप यस करो उस पे क्योंकि आपका वीडियो बंद
Yeah.
हो गया था. अच्छा.
Is it okay now?
It's good now.
Okay, very good. So, see, I would like to go to backdated to the period of Rishabdev. And Rishabdev, once he was actually watching the dance of Nilanjana in his courtyard of the kingdom Kaushal. And Nilanjana, while dancing, she just died. But the Swadharma Indra, he immediately changed the scene. And nobody could notice that Nilanjana has died except one person, and that is Prabhu Rishabdev. Rishabdev, in almost like a microsecond or nanosecond, he noticed that Nilanjana died and the new Nilanjana has been posted by this Swadharma Indra. But this change of Nilanjana could not actually stop Rishabdev. And Rishabdev was so much sensitive, samvedanshil, that he actually left his whole kingdom. It is some kind of asceticism he developed in his mind, in his body, and he left immediately. And then renunciation, he became a monk and he left everything. And that is what he had, some kind of a love with everyone. And that is the very important part. He then spent a message to the whole world, that universal love. And that is universal compassion. This universal love, that is some kind of a slogan or message he gave, and after Keval Gyan, he spread this message on this earth everywhere, that we should love to each and every organism, and we should try to make effort that we do not kill knowingly or unknowingly. So this message from the Rishabdev, first Tirthankar, continued up to the 23rd Tirthankar, and then the time came just 2600 years almost back, Prabhu Mahavir, the last Tirthankar, he reviewed this whole work done by previous Tirthankars, and he further devoted himself during his meditation, and he detailed out, described this whole non-violence in a great manner, and particularly that whole universal love, universal compassion was given in a new way, that ahimsa paramo dharma, that is non-violence is the biggest virtue of life, the biggest virtue of religion, biggest virtue of kinship with everyone. And under that slogan, ahimsa paramo dharma, he told that live, let others live also, and help to those who need the help to live. That is, geo, ginedo, and assist others to live on the earth. Under this new things, he told that every jeev, that is every organism, has this right to live in this world, that is on this earth. Now, irrespective where he is on the space and time, but everyone has a right. So he also, while describing the religion, he told that this whole universe is full of life, that is Atma or Prana. So we will see that whether this life today is there in the air, whether the life is there under this earth, that is in the ocean or subsurface. What we see life is on the surface and in the only upper part of the ocean. But what is happening elsewhere? That is very important. And are we trying to keep every life safe? So basically, what has happened in the last few hundreds of years, that this definition of ahimsa was moderately changing, and people considered this ahimsa only with the injury or killing of the lives. But it is not that. In fact, it is not that. The ahimsa is actually just not injuring or harming the life, but actually, even if you do through your mind, through your speech, or by physical, but are you really employing in your act the truthfulness, that is satya, truth, and also forgiveness? So what happened, that he told that truth is the centroid of the non-violence. And if you knowingly or unknowingly or intentionally, unintentionally, if you are giving wrong information, misleading information, or you are telling lie, putting others into the chaos, in trouble, then it is also the violence. So many kinds of things are there. Even if violence is done by self, violence is done by others, and their endorsement, approval is also a violence. However, if you know finally that yes, it was your mistake, and you apologize for that your mistake, then the forgiveness is also an integral part of non-violence. So overall, the non-injury to any life, non-killing, truthfulness, and the forgiveness altogether make the non-violence, and that is very important. Now, the important aspects of this whole ahimsa is the supreme ruler of our conduct and is known as the universal compassion. Now, how much universal love and compassion, which was started all the way from Rishabdev, how much still exists. In between, you know that ahimsa is not a sole property of only the Jainism. It was also described in various other religions. But it started actually at the time of the Neolithic period, let us say, of the Rishabdev time. I would like to say the one real story which happened on this earth, that almost 6,000 years back, the Mahabharata era was there, and at that time, there was a war which is known as Kurukshetra war between Pandavas and Kauravas, and finally, almost 166 crore, that is 1,660,020,000 people, big number, very big number, almost 70-80% people on this earth were killed. And you can imagine, when so many people were killed, then how many small organisms of one sense to other 4 cents, they might have been also killed. So it is billions and trillions of actually Jeeves were killed at that time. It was a big violence in the history of the earth. And after winning or victory of whole that Kurukshetra war, Pandavas finally ruled, but they were not satisfactory, and there was a guilty conscience, and they all went to go to the heaven, and in between the place there is a Badrinath where the Saraswati river flows. I myself also visited with my family and friends that place where the Saraswati finally killed Draupadi over there, and then she was not able to cross that river, and on the other side other Pandavas went and they also finally died except Yudhishthira. Anyway, that whole thing was actually reinvented, and then there was an epic which name is Mahaprasthanika Parv. This is very well known epic, small granth, but it is very well have been cited and have been used for the non-violence, ahimsa. So this is it will take little time, but I will read it out because I am very much always fascinated with this shloka, this sutra of Mahaprasthanika. Par ahimsa parmo dharmasya tatha ahimsa paro dhamma ahimsa parmo danam ahimsa parmasya tapa ahimsa parmo yagnasya tatha ahimsa param bala ahimsa parmo mitram ahimsa paramam sukham ahimsa paramam satyam ahimsa paramam sharulam. That means that ahimsa is the highest religion, ahimsa is the highest self-control, ahimsa is the greatest gift, ahimsa is the best practice, ahimsa is the highest sacrifice, ahimsa is the finest strength, ahimsa is the greatest friend, ahimsa is the greatest happiness, and ahimsa is the highest truth and highest, greatest teaching. So you can see that the Pandava themselves did not follow this thing. Kaurava, of course, did not follow. The basic problem behind all this was the passion, which comprises the ego, pride, and greed, etc., etc. Now, but we are talking all the time that universal love should be there, non-violence should be there. All the things, they look very good. But what is the reality on today? How much this universal love is existing as on today in 21st century, particularly in the corona pandemic time? That is the important thing. This universal love, how this United Nations or organizations see, let us see this data. This data says very clearly that more than 136 million chickens are killed per day for the lust of the food. We see that 300 million farmed fishes are killed per day for the food. Then more than 200 million almost animals are per day killed for the food. This turns out that if I take the summation for the whole year, then it will come out 72 billion land animals and over 1.2 trillion aquatic animals are killed over the 1 year. This is the actually fact. Now where the universal love, where the non-violence is lost, whether we Jain community did not actually carried out our duty to spread the message of the non-violence to the world. We need not to convert the people to the Jainism. Rather, we have to actually propagate the message, principles of Jainism to the world. In this connection, I would like to just give one actually result of my recent research work, which I have done very recently during this corona pandemic. And you can see in this picture what I have done, that I actually carried out the meat consumption per capita per year of the 120 countries data, which I got from the United Nations, that FO, that is FAO, that is I think Farming and Agriculture Organization, and the data for the death mortality due to corona only pandemic, only coronavirus, that is on the y-axis, that is from the WHO, World Health Organization. The population data I got also from the UNO up to the April data. And then you can see what I humbly request to the whole audience. X-axis is the meat consumption per capita per year, and y-axis is the mortality rate. I have not done much other, corrections in the data, but this is simply direct message of non-violence. This is directly message of the Shakahar, vegetarianism, that the death rate, mortality rate in the high meat consumption was 2 orders high relative to the low meat consumption. So this itself suggests that the immunity and as well as the non-vegetarian food are not good. Both are weak in that. Rather, the vegetarian food is really good. But this kind of examples, if we take to the world in a scientific way, then it will really carry some message. I'm very much proud to say, sir, that to all of you, that this, my research paper, has been read so far in 1.5 months by more than 17,000 people. And particularly this plot has become so much popular in the world that 1.4 million people have already used this and seen this picture. And this is not the end story. That actually, if you see that the next plot, which is I received from the United Nations, and you can see here that this x-axis is the time from 1961 to almost up to 2017, and the y-axis is the meat production, including both the land as well as the aquatic, etc. And this is in million tons, and in different parts of the world, that different regions, say for example, Asia, North America, South America, etc., Europe. And you can see what I would like to have your kind attention, that this meat production, instead of adopting non-violence, the people of the whole folk of the world, they are adopting this violence. They keep on increasing this meat production. Previously, some 70-80% were the people who were non-vegetarian. Currently, the UNO itself says that 85-90% people are non-vegetarian. Why it happened and how it happened? It means we are not performing our duty of propagation of the message principles of Mahavir, particularly non-violence, very properly and in a precise manner. We should do that thing also. This is my recommendation, and I am committed to do that. Now, in this picture, I would like to have your further kind attention. If you see in the box some numbers in the yellow color box, that is, I have written, say for example, between 1960 and 70, some 40 by 6, and then in the next 42 by 5, and like that. That is the number, the top number in the numerator is the number of earthquakes which came in during that 10-year time. And the bottom, that denominator, is the volcanoes which appeared. The earthquake which I have considered is on the Richter scale more than 5, that is dangerous earthquakes. Similarly, on the VEI, that is volcano explosive index of the volcano, also very strong volcanoes. And you know that most of the volcanoes, out of every 3 volcanoes, 2 volcanoes erupt in the oceans only, and they cause then further the tsunamis, etc. You can see this number of earthquakes and volcanoes is keep on increasing as a function of this time, but increase in the production of the meat. However, as a scientist, and particularly a scientist of the background of solar physics and astrophysics and planetary physics, I would like to say, because I am doing work on that, I have found the relationship of the earthquake and volcanoes with the solar eruptions which are taking place, solar irradiance, sunspots, time, galactic cosmic rays, etc. But I always find by the best chi-square fit, the correlation 70 to 80% with all those events. The rest, almost you can say 20 to 30% is missing. Now, there is a question, is that 20 to 30% missing part is because of this violence on the earth? That is, in terms of other way, I can say because the disturbance in the nature is disturbed, our biosphere and geosphere are disturbed. So I'm already doing in the process of the really detailed workout of all these things in a research work, but this is some kind of an initial message to the world that how the things are, this violence is disturbing our whole nature. Now, I would like to have your kind attention just to tell about the little bit about that, our atmosphere, Earth's atmosphere. I will not go into the detail, but because I want to take the real science part, and you can see here that the x-axis is the magnitude of the pressure, temperature, the density, sound speed, etc. Y-axis is the altitude, that height above the surface. And you can see that at the surface, or almost all the quantities are at their highest magnitude. But as we go up and up, they are coming down. But particularly, please note that around 30 kilometers, they are again temperature and sounds, they are keep on increasing. Means the temperature and sound are so much sensitive at 30 kilometers, so it covers the above the stratosphere and then increase and then again decreases. Means it will have some gap. So is it this 30 kilometer says something and above also is something? We will see that the stratosphere also includes the ozonosphere, somewhere from the 10 to 15 kilometer or something like that, and or even 50 to sometimes 30 kilometer because change of the height of the layer. So first is the troposphere, where the most of our clouds formation, rains, etc. are there, and that is between the almost you can say 0 to 12 kilometer, and above that 12 to 30, 50 kilometer is the stratosphere. Above that, there are many atmospheres are there, that is a thermosphere and even up to exosphere. Now it will be very interesting to see, are we keeping, are there first of all some lives are there in this atmosphere, and are we trying to keep them safe? This is my basic question. You can just see in my this next slide that the what is happening to the airborne these microbes in climate over there. Just little bit science, you see, of the non-violence I will tell over here. These microbes which are near the sea, on the ground, microbes, you see, very small organisms of the size of the 0.1 to 0.5 or even up to 2 or 3 microns, very little. But when the sea surface temperature goes up because of the solar irradiance, when it is very high, then this temperature, they go with the heat upside. See, if they are live, then they understand that they have to go up, and we call them as a bottom up microbes. And they carry that heat and they go up, all the way up to the stratosphere, up to the 30, 50 kilometers. And then they circulate the ozone inside that, and they try to bring the oxygen down. This already have been evidenced by various kinds of people and researchers over there. And you can see that there are very high citation papers are there, which I have cited over here. And these microbes, when they go up, they bring the oxygen down, and during the hurricanes time, they come down, that is up bottom side, and they sit on the raindrops. See, the raindrop, that is water, and water also has some inside the another microorganisms over there, and they sit and they come down. And basically what we call them, that these microbes actually are the cloud condensation nuclei, that is CCN, and this play the significant role in our climate maintenance and good rains. And I would like to add one more, that they bring the pure water. Even they try to remove that acidity part, that acidic rains. So, but, and they have been forgotten by us. And this tropopause over here, then the next also in the 8 to 15 kilometer also, that is above middle atmosphere, etc. And similarly, they also play the important role. They exchange the oxygen from the top to the bottom and even to the high side. So if I integrate 3 to 30 kilometer, then in fact, an experiment was conducted by the Genesis and Rapid Intensification Process by the NASA in the almost 2012. And what in the sample, when they have taken with the cloudy and cloud-free and the 2 hurricanes time, and that sample actually showed, and that I will say here, if you can see, then this left arrow and right arrow, please have attention over there. And this are almost of the size of the fungi. And the top is for the bacteria, that which I am talking, and the bottom part is of the fungi. X-axis is the conditions, exposures which have been given. Y-axis is the, exposures, and X-axis is the different types of the things, microbes. What I would like to just convey here, the very important message that the findings actually presented here suggested that the microbiome is a dynamic phenomenon. It's a dynamic life, and which has been underappreciated aspect of the upper troposphere, with a potentiality importing the whole impacts, and they are very important hydrological cycle for the clouds formation and maintenance of the climate. This is very important message, and this is the what I want to also conjecture over here, that this is the message was, I think, kept in mind by the Tirthankar Mahavir. At that time, there was no such science and technology. Only what he did is through the Keval Gyan. In the beginning of the Gyan, and then Manoparivan Gyan and the Keval Gyan, all these things he came to know, which we are not even able to know, learn, even with the such high-tech instrumentation, etc. But he was aiming only for the non-violence. Why he was pro to non-violence? Because to maintain the nature. He wanted that people should respect the laws of nature. This was very important, and this is what, even to some extent, we are reaching to the principles of the Mahavir. Now, I would like to have another thing, that why we are killing them. You will ask me a question, how we are killing? Okay, let them be there, but no, we are killing through the aircrafts. We are killing them by the spacecrafts. We are living by the defense industries, so many missiles we are launching, etc. And I mean, so many things, guns we are using in the air, and so many applications. And what is happening, that this kind of our activities, that is human activities, the carbon dioxide is actually released by these aircrafts. And this carbon dioxide is so much, and we already know that it is a greenhouse gas, and which actually plays an important role in increasing the temperature of the earth, which we call as a global warming, as well as this CO2 is also playing the role in the creating the acids, that is in hydrocarbons, and then oceans actually are produced as a acidification kind of thing. So now this is so many researches have been done. You can see the citations in this slide I have put up, and all the citations are on the very high impact factor cited over there. Now, this experiment basically, so much data has been gathered, and I would like to have your kind attention only on one thing, that in 2014 alone, 1 year, 8.3 million people actually flew per day. And in 2018, the global commercial operations of the aircrafts emitted 918 million tons. 918 million tons of carbon dioxide, which is significant, because even we are worried, actually our atmospheric scientists are worried even with the enhancement of CO2 by 0.5%. And here it is contribution to 2.4%, which is very, very much significant. And I think many of you may like to collect the data and see the many other papers on this link, which I have given over here. So I will humbly suggest that we should not actually try to kill the aviation industry, spacecraft industry. The military defense is also nowadays industry. They should take care of these microbes, which are actually the key factor for our climate. I would like to have your attention on another actually experiment which was done for this aviation production of the carbon dioxide, oxygen, CH4, and all other things. I will not take much time, and I will go directly. You can see in this carbon dioxide, oxygen, they are very much relevant, and they are with the fair data. And some particles which are soot, they are also very bad for the climate. So total has gone up by almost 20%, which is not good for our climate. Now, the message is very clear. If we see that aviation industry, this space industry, and defense industry are killing thousands of trillions, not 1 trillion, not 10 or 100, but thousands of trillions of airborne microbes every day. So now what we want to do with all these things? We are actually crying, and on the other hand, we are crying that, oh, global warming is there, climate change is there. But who is doing? We ourselves are doing all this. We are actually polluting our Earth's atmosphere. We are polluting the oceans also. So this is the somewhere we have to check. We have to make some policy very clear. I would like to have the other kind of things, the species which are extinct. First of all, I would like to say that this in last 50 years, the 50,000 or maybe more than that species have become extinct. And who is responsible for that? Just I have shown few images over here of the sea cow, then this duck, Labrador duck are over there. Then this what we call is a great auk. All have become extinct. All have become extinct. And why? Because this has been done by European community. I would directly like to take the name also, because they wanted the eggs also. So they have collected the eggs and they have finished everything. Now these species are out of this world, and I don't know what will happen to this thing. Similarly, if I go to the real scenario, then you will notice that the people call, on the other hand, everything has become extinct. Now United Nations say, oh, there is a gap in the nature. But who has made this gap in the nature? Why don't you take the immediate measures for that? Why you are slow? Why are you working under so political leaders of the different countries? You see that almost more than 500 years this extinction is going on. Although I agree that oceans creatures are less extinct than on the land. But what recently some scientists that like Douglas et al., they have published a paper in Science, and it has been cited more than 1,000 times actually. And what they say that 15 animals which are known to have vanished forever from the oceans so far, and on the land 514. But they say that if this will continue, then in next few years, the oceans will actually, the more number of lives of the oceans, they will become extinct. And once they will extinct, then this ecosystem will be in trouble for the millions of years. That is what message is coming from them. So why it is they are thinking like that? This is a big question. Why this non-violence is important? That is a big question. And accordingly, what I say that they think that similar kind of things by different animals in the past, such activities were done. They were killing the lower ones, then they further lower ones like that. And 5 extinctions have taken place on this earth in the past. And now we are also, actually, as per our culture of Jainism, we are in the 5th ara, that is Pancham Kal of our Kal Chakra. And the Bhagwan Rishabdev, actually born in the 3rd to 4th era, he spent his time. And after Mahavir, we have spent almost 2,600 years. So currently we are in the Dukma period, and the next 6th ara will be Dukma, and then further 2 aras of the Utsarpani will be also of the similar nature. So maybe next 1 lakh year, I think that earth is really going to see the bad time. And if we will continue, then I presume from my side, the 6th extinction is possible, that there will be no human on the earth. We are the 5 sense people. We have 5th sense, but the 10 with the virtualities over there, that is mind is also there. And this mind, the God has given as a gift, but we are not using this mind to save this nature. Rather, we are using it to destroy the nature. So I would like to say that there are 9 different mechanisms are there for the carbon deposition in the ocean and to save our climate. You can see in this picture that as per their size, every animal, every organism which has the mass, basically it is we call as a biomass, and that is referred as a carbon. And every organism has a capacity according to its size of the organism to deposit the carbon. And they deposit the carbon inside this ocean at different heights. This carbon is then converted sometimes by the little organisms into the fertilizers, and that is used by the plants inside the ocean. But the bigger fishes like whales, etc., which survive for 200 years and few tons of biomass, what they do, they take the carbon mass deposition that is on the deep, that is in the bottom of the ocean. Now, if you see here, this thing, that this carbon basically is used by our Earth for the conversion. Now, there are two mechanisms over there. One mechanism to protect our Earth, that is deposition to absorb the carbon. The one mechanism is the forest and the wetlands. And for that is a very big, that is on the surface of the Earth. And that has been recommended by the almost 28 countries to UNO, and UNO has taken the strategy to protect the forest and wetlands. But there is another mechanism which I propose, that is the ocean itself. And this ocean lives, because they can carry and they can deposit much more carbon inside the Earth. And that is much better also, because after certain time of hundreds or thousands of years, this carbon at the bottom, which was deposited by this ocean life, is converted into the various other forms of the carbon, such as diamond, graphite, etc. And then it comes out with the volcanoes outside and can be further used by the different materials. So, I mean, there is no policy has come but from the UNO to protect the oceans. Rather, everybody is in favor to make the ocean as an industry. Now, oceans, if are the industry, then definitely there is no question of non-violence. It will be violence will be there. While on the other hand, I told that this mechanism of carbon deposition is very good for the climate. And these microbes and the other fishes, etc., like they are actually the biodiversity producers, and we should not kill them. This everybody knows that, but nobody is following that thing. I would like to say another more important thing, that whether these microbes are inside the ocean, on the surface of the Earth, or inside the Earth. Because we have, our Prabhu Mahavir has told that the life is everywhere, even inside the Earth also. Sorry. So that this life, we have to find out, and we should not ignore the microbes anywhere, whether on the surface or subsurface level. This is very important. And in the recent investigations, actually has been done that this marine animals can sequester the carbon and deposit the carbon, which I have already told. But the marine microbes, that is very small size of almost 1 to 5 microns, they play very important role. Like they comprise of bacteria, archaea, fungi, and virus. When I say virus, means this is different virus and not the corona pandemic virus. So don't confuse with the coronavirus. This is the virus which is taking the care of our climate. These all viruses, bacteria, and archaea, etc., they are often considered as engines of the ecosystem. They are really engines. In fact, I should say they are playing as an engineering role. And for the keeping the whole healthy our ecosystem. They clean the oceans also from the west and often actually defending against the diseases and rather than spreading the diseases. This is very important part. And the what the microbes which are inside, I should say, that is inside the earth, they are actually the most living under the extreme environmental conditions, from boiling hydrothermal vents almost in the rocks, etc., inside, to the underground of the glacier lakes in the Antarctica. See the temperature gradient. It's a wide temperature gradient, very high, almost boiling side, plus 200 side degree centigrade, and the minus 200 degree centigrade kind. But they are still surviving. Now the people, when those who ask question, how the life is everywhere possible, but this has been proven by the scientists in various way, and already has been recently detected that at 2.8 kilometer up to the site has been microbes and organisms have been detected. The other important fact I would like to mention here to the all community, that this subsurface life we should not kill by any means, because that is our primitive life that can actually open the secrets, formation of the earth, and also the evolution of the human beings. So that is very, very important. And all these things actually, I think, were amazingly visualized by Mahavir. And he was always of the pro to the nature. Now we are not but doing our perfect work. And there was one very good paper in Science again on this thing, and where they told that up to 2.8 kilometer in the subsurface, the life has been detected, which is almost in agreement to, in our Jain hellish word, that Nigodya Jeev is already detected. But what I would like to vouch, I would like to say, I would like to urge to the whole community of the world that it is not up to 2.8 kilometer, all the way even up to much deeper, maybe 28 kilometer or 280 kilometer or 2,800 kilometer, because we have already observed that the microbes are always can exist with such a large temperature gradient. So this is very important point, and we should have in mind. But what we are doing, just like for the airborne microbes killing, we use that air jets, spacecrafts, our this defense machine guns, etc. Similarly here, we are doing mining. You see, the mining is actually killing so many animals and microbes over there. Then the seismic radar instruments we are using. We are using the ground penetrating radars also. And by applications of all this, we are killing these small organisms, which actually carry the history of the evolution of the human being itself also. So now I would like to go to the completely different topic of the of the violence by which we do and we kill the organisms, and that influences the human being also. And that is what the acoustic, that is the sound frequency, etc. You know that what I speak, that frequency is somewhere between 20 hertz to 20,000 hertz. And then there is another kind of a frequency which are higher frequency, called the ultra high frequency, and on the similarly on the lower side also frequencies are there. Now what microbes, which primarily producers of this biosphere, as I told earlier, they play an important role. But what experiment has been done recently, and that experiment suggests that the small organisms, that bacteria of the E-type, coli and K12, these are the just names, don't go to the very seriously over there, but these are the names of the microbes. And a recent experiment was conducted just 4 years back, and they found that these microbes all the way, either they will go to the higher production side or they will die if the dose is given from the 800 hertz to the 80 decibel strength. So basically what happens, finally I can conclude from this experiment that the very small organisms, very, very small, of the 0.01 to the 2 micron diameter, they actually cannot tolerate and all those which cannot tolerate this high frequencies or ultra high frequencies, that those also in high decibels, then they will die over there in just fraction of the second. And so what we should do, we should not take care of all those organisms? Should we not apply the non-violence to them? It is very important that in order to save the whole nature, we should take care of the microbes also from this high frequency. But currently, you know that the high telecommunication frequencies, the radio frequencies, the sound which we are doing, they all, you see, we are trying to kill all these people. That's why actually there is one very important aspect in our Jainism which Prabhu Mahavir has given, the Maun, silence. And not silence only from mouth, but silence from in the whole physical body, that is through the mind, thoughts, as well as from the whole physical body, that is in the some kind of a dhyana. So this was the important, that silence, if you will observe as many times, or you will practice that Maun, that dhyan, that many, at least you will make a big difference in killing this thing. Because you will not use the mobiles, you will not use the telecommunication frequencies. And it is not only that by the television, etc., but you know that in the spacecraft technology, aircraft technology, we send the signals, that is high voltage signals are going also, and that also produce much more killing than the just acoustic frequencies also. So that is very important. We should take care of that. The other thing is, I would like to tell one important fact over here is about very important fact, and which I have experienced also, is about that there is a mechanical vibrations are generated from our body, that is from the Panchendriya, that is five sense, that is human beings, other animals, etc. And you might have also observed, for example, when the earthquake comes, just before the earthquake comes or explodes, the infrasonic waves come out, and many animals and birds, they fly away because they already sense through the infrasonic waves. Infrasonic waves, I can say that these are our thought waves are also infrasonic waves. These are the low frequency waves in some very almost between 0.01 hertz to sometimes 10 hertz. And experiments were done about all these frequencies, and it was found that this heart beating is there, that gives resonance around 1 hertz. Then there is another resonance of the brain, which is about 10 hertz, and then the blood circulation about 0.05 to 0.3 hertz. These are very important, and I would like to take some few seconds over here to describe this thing. Now, this infrasonic waves, actually when the experiment further it was done, then the resonance was found also at this frequency. But in addition to that, what happened, that the heartbeat frequency, and the second, which was, in response to the human respiratory system of the rhythm, and the third actually, which were discovered by the Traube and Herring. So in their name, Traube Herring waves, that they were connected with the emotions, that we call also as emotional tension waves, because they are mechanical waves. And through this emotional waves, one can read, one can judge the human emotional state, and via the amplitude and the frequency response of these waves. This is very important. And I would like to have your kind attention on this, because nowadays infrasonic sensors have been developed. Now I would like to conjecture a model over here. I apply this infrasonic waves now from human being to the animals, let us say cow, other animals which are actually slaughtered in the slaughterhouse. Now, once in the beginning they cry, that is acoustic frequency, that is between 20 hertz to 20,000 hertz. But once their blood vessels are being cut, see, then what happens, their whole body trembles, and this infrasonic waves. So they actually cry from the infrasonic waves. Their whole body actually cries, but because their now mouth is finished, they cry their whole body. And what we call as a, when we give something message from our heart or from the inside, that is when such tension stage is there, that is we call as a curse or high or baddua. And or if we are in good state, then we give blessings from inside also, ashirvadam. And so these are low frequency, and this should be detectable. So if we can plant some kind of an instrument, and nowadays I'm slowly, of course, but in the stage to design some instrument. I'm known for the instrumentation technology. And then perhaps in future we can detect these infrasonic waves from the animals which are being slaughtered, or they are killed slowly in the slaughterhouses. Or we can do other way experiment also. Many anyway, that will take time, and I do not want to go into details of it. But the infrasonic waves are very, very important for the discovery of the karmas also. Now I'm coming to the another completely other aspects, that is the scientific aspects of the ahimsa, that for the climate. Actually, you see that I have already told you that this whole nature is actually our climate is changing because of the various kinds of microbes, and other things are, other animals are killed. What I would like to have a very important point in this connection. There was paper was published in Nature, and 30 microbiologists, first time it happened, 30 microbiologists from 9 different countries, and they made a plea, and they have given to the UN also and to the world community that this unseen majority, that is microbes and bacteria, etc., and other, I should say animals also, which are not, we are not able to see them, but they make a bigger world on this earth. And how to save, how to protect. At least somebody has done this thing, although they are not Jains, but this initiative has been taken, and it is a very good initiative. And whole, I would like to urge whole Jain community from all over the globe, we should, shake our hands with them, and we should join this vision and try to make some kind of a complementary to them, and some other efforts, so that we can save this organic world, of the small organic world, I should say, or the microbes world. So basically, this is a very big effort has been taken, and this bacteria, particularly, again, I would like to say, which I told in the beginning, that bottom up and the up bottom bacteria, which are actually playing the key role right from the sea surface to the up to the stratosphere, and they are forming the clouds, they are bringing the rains, etc. And that is why these microbiologists have came to some worry, and they wanted to make this thing. I would like to give some attention about the honeybees, the electric field actually, or the some kind of this radiation, which the effects of the whole electric, magnetic, and the electromagnetic fields, which are always of concern. There was no electric field world during the Mahavir time. There was no magnetic field world at the time of the Mahavir. Nothing was there. There was no kind of a world plasma over there at the time of Mahavir. But Mahavir actually distributed the whole world into 26 varganas, that is particles of different nature, which change their properties as a function of the density of their agreement, that is making the group or the group number. So that is, there is a vargana which we call as a Tejas vargana. And Tejas vargana has a property to distribute the particles of two natures. That is, one is the magnetic particle, which we call now in the polarities, that is plus polarity and minus polarity. And similarly, the electric field, at that time that was not named, but the negatively charged particle or positively charged particle. Tejas is basically energy state, very high energy state. And that has the capacity to modify, to convert the whatever through the interactions which is coming either in the way of the wave or in the form of the particles. Now here you can see that the electric field and magnetic field, x-axis is the magnetostatic field which has been given, that is the intensity nanotesla. Tesla is the, you maybe I think not aware, but 1 Tesla equal to 10 to the power 4 Gauss. Gauss, I think many of you may be aware, that is the magnetic field strength, and y-axis is the what kind of conditions which have been given and the exposures which were given. You can see in the picture that the red mark, that red triangles are there, the green diamond kind of things are there. That is the negatively and positively the separated, that character negative effect, positive effect. I would like to say under the influence of electric field or magnetic field separately or as a joint electromagnetic field, it is always dangerous. It is always very, very much dangerous, and negative effect or positive effect, both are very bad, because this force, electromotive force, actually changes its kinematics of the cells. So these both are acceleration kind of things, and it is not good, which has been observed in the honeybees over there. And honeybee is not a small microorganism. It comes under the category of animal. So you can feel that we are also always influenced by that thing. We can go to the other thing, that very recently in 2016, there was a very good paper which published and which has been again cited many times. And in 2017 also another paper was published by FIDE. What they say, that basically this electromagnetic fields, they affect the human beings. But it is very natural, basically, because generally it has been told from our tradition that this electromagnetic fields we should not use, etc. So this forces actually changes our kinematics of our things in our body also, but various kinds of our effects, say negative effects of our immune system, our reproductive systems, etc., developing various kinds of diseases, all these things. So this has been confirmed, and in view of that, a European Commission formed a committee, and they actually submitted a report. So this all I would like to say, because I will run out of time, and this simple experiment was conducted on the birds, and it was found that the high frequency, the radiations which are coming from the electromagnetic field, so under this very high frequency or ultra high frequency, then you can see in the right hand side relative to the 0, that the mortality rate has been keep on growing over there under the different, as soon as we are increasing the conditions of the electromagnetic field. So similarly, the high frequency rates actually are very dangerous. That is if I go to the magnetic field, then also on the birds, they lose their orientations, etc. with the 7 megahertz, or even I go to the 1.3 megahertz, but with different kind of a magnetic field in 480 nanotesla or 1.5 nanotesla, then basically they lose their orientation. And many times you might have seen the birds actually fall down suddenly without any cause over there, but that is basically happens because of the influence of the high electromagnetic radiations over there. Then the influence of electromagnetic pollution, there was a paper over there, and they say that according to this, the current technologies, basically all technologies based on the electromagnetic field applications. So all these are the source are currently, which are they all have technologies produce the pollution from this electromagnetic fields. And the fact is that the microbes which are flying in the air, let us say, the E-type Colli and B-type, which I discussed earlier also. And this influence of the electromagnetic radiation on this is so strong that they immediately die. Now it means again by the electromagnetic field also we kill the microorganisms. So in view of all that, and particularly a paper recently published in the Nature that the anthropogenic electromagnetic noise, and that disrupts the whole magnetic compass. Basically, we all are also a magnetic compass, because I'm also a small magnet. Every bird which is the life is there, that is a magnetic needle. And in view of that, what I discussed with our Acharya Bhagwan, Shri Nandi Goshti Maharaj Sahab, as well as the Acharya Bhagwan, Shri Kanak Nandi Ji Gurudev, and what they told, that most of the electromagnetic field is the seriously impacting. Means the every wave, whether it is acoustic wave, whether it is electromagnetic radiation, whether it is sound waves, it is infrasonic waves, high frequency or low frequency radio waves, all they first interact with the Tejas body. And then this interaction will make some kind of result, what kind of activity has been done by you, and then that will be encrypted on our Karman bodies. So every Atma Pradesh, I have shown over here a body, and above that physical body, and then above that Karman body. So basically not physical body, I should say it is at the top Adharic, but internal body is Atma Pradesh, that is Atma, life, then the Karman, and then Tejas. So every Atma Pradesh is basically is comprised of the three, that is Atma, Karman, and Tejas. Now, as a scientist, I would like to say that we should avoid. So every organism, and for the other organisms which do not have mind, we should avoid for them this electromagnetic fields over there. Because according to physics, it acts like a E cross B effect, which I do not want to go into mathematics and physics of that, but it acts as a pointing vector, and it it is directly impacting on with or interacting with our Tejas body, and then our encryption is written on the Karman body. It's a big, whole thing model on which I am working, and it is, I think, will be in tune or in synchronous to our Jain model, and the science both will work together. I hope so. Anyway, what I want to say in last 5 minutes, that this everywhere now there is a cry. We have done all the violent activities everywhere, in the air, on the surface, on the earth, in the ocean, and inside the earth also. And now we are crying. And why we have done this all violent? Because with the advent of science and technology put the nature to the service of the human being, and they gave too much, and the human being became much more greedy, and they wanted more and more. Now, as soon as this corona pandemic came, now everybody wants, everybody is crying that, oh, lots of problems are there. We have now destroyed our nature. We should protect our biosphere, geosphere. We are not doing this and that. Now they want. So what I recommend, that this 21st century, this is a good opportunity for the Jain community, Jainism, that during this time, at least we can propagate the message of the philosophy of Jainism, Jain Darshan, to the whole world in general, and particularly at least this non-violence, taking the advantage of the research which has been conducted. So everywhere there is a cry, and I would like to, everybody is asking, many people are asking me that you are a scientist and do you know that what is going to happen? What is the future? So I just say, see over here. Now this is some kind of a model, and based on the real observations. So I would like to have now kind attention. The x-axis is the temperature 2000 years before the BC, that 0 is the BC time, and 2000 years after the BC. You can see this temperature is from the Greenland, that Arctic region, which is uncontaminated, unpolluted. and always we take the temperatures for comparison from there only, because it is always reliable temperature. Now the y-axis, you can see also the temperature which is over there in already in minus conditions, but the temperature is keep on changing. I would like to have two important points to make over here. Please note the arrow on the extreme left side where I have written the post-Indus Valley civilization. The post-Indus Valley civilization, after the Mahabharat war. So whenever the war on this earth was there, after that the big earthquake or something happened, big event. You know that after Mahabharat, this Indus civilization was devastated. Whole temperature also came down. Then there is a temperature rise over there. But can you kindly make an impression very clearly that in general, the temperature in last 4,000 years, it is continuously coming down and down and down. However, in between the 200 or 400 years, there is a peak. So these peaks are the warmer time, and very recently global warming or warm time was there for almost 100 years, which we call as a modern warming. And then again, temperature is going. So green thing is actually the model, blue is the real observations. And if you, what we have done with the chi-square test, that is least square fitting, this correlation between the observations and the model is almost 80% or R equal to correlation coefficient is 0.8, which is supposed to be very, very good. Okay. Now I would like to have your attention another, that after the Mahavir I have shown by arrow, then there was a very big war, which is known as the Kalinga War, which was done by the Ashok Chakravarti. And after that war again, you see the temperature went down. And then you also know that in the last century, Second World War, the nuclear weapons were used. And again, in the Kalinga War, 2 crores people were actually killed. And then in the Dayan River was full of blood. And here in this way also, this nuclear war, 1 crore people, the 10 million people were killed. Then now again we are, but temperature, you can see that we are going in the 5th era and continuously temperature is going down, which suggests that in this next century, that is in current century of 21st century and 22nd, perhaps there will be, instead of global warming, there will be global cooling. And this will be definitely a going hard time for the people of the next generation, because we are not obeying the laws of principle of the nature. What I have done for the people, those who are interested from me to know that what will really happen in the 21st century. So I just have made a comparison with the 20th century, and as a scientist, whatever best models I have used and the real observations of the 20th century of the various kinds of disasters and calamities which took place in 20th century and the observations of 20 years of 21st century. So red letters on the right side is 20 years of observation, and on the left side completely all observed 20th century disasters and predicted in the right side for the 21st century. You can see the volcanoes which took place 68 in the 20th century. They are expected 200 in 21st century. Already 30 have been observed in this 20 years. That killed 15 lakhs people in contrast to the 1 lakh people in the 20th century. Earthquakes, we have already seen 15 earthquakes in this 20 years. In contrast to in 100 years, only 23, 25 were there. And we expect more than 1 crore people will die due to earthquakes in this 21st century. There were lots of tsunamis because of the volcanoes over there, and 33 tsunamis were there in 20th century. But we have already observed 90 tsunamis in different parts of this world over the globe, and we expect more than 230 in this 21st century. These are the approximate numbers with the plus minus 10% accuracy. So even if we consider that, then you can imagine that the 21st century is going to be a big devastating the century. Even pandemics, I see floods, droughts, etc. will be in large in number. But I would like to have your attention on pandemics, which were 39 in 20th century. And already in different parts of the globe, in this 20 years, we have already seen the 70 pandemics in the form of H1N1 the SARS also, chikungunya, and various kind of flus, etc. So, and it is estimated by all the scientists over in the world that more than at least 300 pandemics will be there in this 21st century. So with all these things, it is some kind of alarming. It is alarming that why we are after all not planning, why we are not planning some kind of a strategy to save our nature. At least if we cannot, take care of the natural, that is the solar influences, galactic cosmic rays influences, or the cosmic influence, but we can make some difference of the anthropogenic activities, the violent activities which are doing. So non-violence is the big message which is required at least to control the systems or to control this our pandemics as well as the disaster, etc. So just to conclude my whole talk, I would like to say that non-violence is the centroid of our life. It should be a part of our discipline, and therefore it should be actually imbibed. Atmasat karna bahut zaruri hai. It should be taken in the whole body over there. There are many things we should stop actually killing, and each type of life, airborne, marine, above and under the surface, everyone, we should respect to everyone. Anyway, what I would like to say again, that basically the Tejas body is very, very important, and that actually encrypts our karma in our body. So if we integrate our all Atma Pradesh, then the whole Tejas will play a big and key role for the interaction with the whatever is coming from the outside, all kind of radiations, waves, particles, or from inside feelings, thoughts, etc. But because that also have to go through the Tejas body. So Tejas body is actually acting like a soldier at the gate, and then it is deciding that what is to be done over here. So finally, I would like to say Ahimsa, along with the truth and forgiveness, is only the solution, and that can bring the peace and prosperity in the world. And so non-violence should be adopted. Finally, only the one word for all the humans, all the humanity. With my folding hands, I would like to urge, there is only no option is there. So man has only two options, either to choose ahimsa, non-violence, or the devastation. The choice is his. And with these words, once again, I would like to express my sincere thanks to the Shramani ji and all the organizers providing me the opportunity to give my presentation. I think I have taken 5-10 minutes more. I'm sorry for that. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Rajmal ji. That was an amazing and excellent presentation, actually. You started off with the definition of a non-violence and then went on to Mahaprasthānika Parv, which was extremely important, and then really explained the complicated theories in most simplistic ways. So let's open up for some questions. I see some things in the chat. People are very, very eager.
Okay, very good.
So Neptune ji, you have something to say?
Yeah, it was an exciting and very interesting talk, Rajmalji. Thank you very much for this wonderful talk. I mean, even from a very hardcore scientific mind, there are lots of stuff that you put in there that we cannot really ignore. And as I was listening to your lecture, there's some of the thoughts that came to my mind also. For example, you mentioned about the microbes in the ocean, and of course we teach our students also. If you look at the planktons, which are the microscopic bodies in the ocean, you know, there can be phytoplanktons and zooplanktons, and the total biomass of these planktons together is more than the total biomass of all other organisms in the world combined. So anything that's affecting these planktons is actually affecting the life in the earth in a much bigger way than, say, you know, like killing an elephant or a whale. So that was a very important thing. The other thing that you mentioned about the various kinds of waves that are affecting life in the oceans particularly, and we all know that the means of communication in the oceans are through sound waves. I mean, oceans are practically opaque to electromagnetic waves and opaque to light waves. So we cannot
Yes.
use radar, we cannot use radio. So the means of communication is sound waves. And we all know that effect of Navy sonar, for example, the Navy uses sonar for communication that are killing the
Yes.
whales, the beaching of dolphins, beaching the whales. So if this can affect the big animals in such a big way, I'm sure that it's possibly affecting microbes in a big way also. The other thing you mentioned about the atmosphere, and we also know how our using of aerosols of chlorofluorocarbons and various kinds of chemicals, and possibly,
Yes.
you know, possibly the exhaust from the aeroplanes also that you mentioned, that you highlighted so, you know, so vividly, it created the ozone hole. And we know that ozone hole allows more electromagnetic, more ultraviolet rays to penetrate to the earth. And there already has been established studies that those extra ultraviolet rays have killed planktons, have affected corals and various kind of organisms in general, and that causes mutation even in humans, for example. For the people who live on our earth, is causing more skin cancers because of more ultraviolet rays. So
Correct.
they all highlight, they basically, all of these things underline what you have been telling on this very exciting talk. Only one thing that I keep on thinking is, for example, in the ozone hole, when the humans got together and the UN had a, you know, we have protocol, and we, within 30, 40 years, through
Yes.
concerted action, we have started mending the ozone hole. Similarly, for the Navy sonars in the oceans, and for example, the extinction that's going on in the ocean of various kind of whales, UN did come together actually, and we have law of seabed treaty, and we have marine sanctuaries, and we have banning of whaling in various parts of the ocean and various times of the year. So all what we are seeing now is the whale population is also kind of recovering from the brink of extinction. So basically what you told us, and what I understand also, that if we go through the path of ahimsa, if we really come together and make a concerted effort throughout the world, we, I mean, not only a future is bleak, but if we come together with very little effort, within 40, 50 years, we can revert it back again to, you know, more healthier life, more healthier world through non-violence, the way you underlined. Thank you very much. That's all I wanted to say.
What I would like to say, if we cannot revert, but at least we can make a big difference. We can, hello?
Yeah, we are able to hear you, Rajmalji.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yes, at least we can make a big difference. And that is necessary. And that can be done with the application of non-violence. We have to propagate the message of non-violence using these researches. This research is because people nowadays understand the science language. They want evidences. They just don't want to accept through the philosophy. So we have to combine the philosophy and the science part, both. And
absolutely,
that's why I choose actually today that my intention to choose this topic of science of non-violence, basically that how we can go ahead throughout the world. I told and I gave one example of my very recent and short research program on this corona pandemic, that how that line actually goes with the meat consumption, and that has been considered greatly by the various peoples, particularly in North America as well as in South America. Well, that is a small effort, but now some big effort in intervention is required at the UNO level also. So that every country at least accept to some extent to stop this killing. And you have seen that killing is not only by one mechanism. There are many mechanisms are actually in order.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Shrimalji. That was an excellent question and a really very good explanation. Speaking of COVID, that's in line with our next question. So
Okay.
the next question is basically, is there any data available for reduction in CO2 during this COVID times that you're aware of?
Well, I don't have that data, but I heard from only in the papers, newspapers, press, etc., that the CO2 level has little bit come down. That is only, but I have not obtained the data. But I think that CO2 level data is not a big thing. We can ask, USGS, that is United States Geological Services over there, because I get all the earthquake, volcanoes data from them only, because it is filtered and corrected data. So what I have to get is from NOAA, National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, so they can provide the data. I think I can get the data, but not immediately, perhaps.
Okay. No,
Mohit,
that. Thank
Mohit,
you.
1 second.
But
राजमल जी,
if
आप
I go
कैमरा
ahead- but
कैमरा
go
में नहीं
as a
दिख रहे.
I'm sorry.
आप कैमरे के सामने नहीं दिख रहे. Can you go and see, look at your phone?
वीडियो ऑफ कर रखा है.
आपका कहाँ गया?
It is now off. I think from your side.
No, make it on. It was on, but it was looking at the on the ceiling. It's not looking at you. Or you change the direction of the camera. Make a front camera active.
I don't know why it has gone.
No, front camera. Like, you have activated the
Yeah,
back
but-
camera.
अरे
Somewhere I think I have pressed something.
Yes.
Rajmalji, just to add to your comment
चार में
I-
एक
I
साथ
think-
about the CO2 level and COVID, there's a latest study. Originally, it was thought the CO2 level will go down by about 4.4%, 1,600 million metric ton of carbon dioxide.
Yes.
But
Yes,
the revised estimate is 5.5% of global total will go down because of COVID. That's all.
Okay.
But
Thank you.
as I told, I cannot immediately give comment, and I don't want to do that unless I have the data in my hand.
I
No,
can send
no,
it to you.
no problem at all. No problem at all. So our next question basically is along the same line as the question that was asked earlier. That was the first question. So basically, the listeners are interested in knowing your suggestion as to how Jain community can make a big difference, being as small as it is, to this worldwide issue. And then the follow-up question for that is there any initiative that you are personally involved that you like to share with the users, basically?
Okay, the two parts, how the Jain community, which is very small, but how it can do. Yes, I think we have to make a forum. Already there are many forums are there. Why not this, your Florida International University? But we have to prepare a white document. We have to prepare a white document and warn the UNO, submit over there. We have to organize some kind of a discussions with authorities over there. Number one. Now, at a personal level or at a group level here in India, at my level, I have formed this Ahimsa Mission Foundation, okay? And I'm doing a lot, not only the physical things, but even giving some kind of a small practical lectures in the school level, so I can prepare the next generation itself and make aware them about the non-violence. Make aware them about the nature, biosphere, geosphere, things and all that. And I take some kind of a pledge in writing from them that they will follow these things and they will try to save the nature, etc. Many, at least 10 different conditions or terms are there. So, and this year on 2nd October, that non-violence Ahimsa Divas, I'm planning to organize some kind of one session of lectures by the Jain monks, plus by some scholars. This is what I'm planning, and I'm privileged with the few channels, digital channels, which I have Janam channel in India, Shrut Ratnakar channel, and 2-3 very TV channels like Paras channel, which is very popular. So something like that kind of awareness program I can do. But At the same time, I'm trying to gather few scholars of environment and the activists of environment and make a forum who can make an appeal and some kind of a document about these problems related to the violence of against. We can divide this whole world into two parts. One is the micro, and the second is the macro. See, you told the example of elephant that comes under macro. Microbes and small organisms which I discussed today, which make another organic world. Microbes are also there. So how to protect this
Rajmal ji,
and
आप
species which are becoming extinct. So already some efforts all over the globe they are doing by the various kinds of NGOs. So I'm trying to be in contact with those NGOs, and I request to all you also that you can put me in the email list of with those NGOs, and you can help me. Thank you very much. Next.
Rajmal ji, are you able to hear us?
Your sound has gone little bit down.
Okay, so we have the same situation. We are barely able to make out actually. For your last response, if there is something that you can make available to Pragnesh Bhai, we are more than welcome to put it on in conjunction with this recording. So I think with that, we are coming towards the very end. The last question that I see here is, and you pretty much answered during your presentation as far as the factors responsible for increasing non-vegetarianism in the world, including India, despite of efforts of Jain saints and community. So if you can take this last question basically, and then we can conclude.
Yes, I would like to take that question. What is the question?
So the question is the factors that are responsible for increasing the non-vegetarianism around the world,
Okay.
including
Yes.
India, despite of the efforts that are going on, such as this one and other Jain saints and the Jain community.
Okay. Are you able to hear my voice at least little bit? Is
Yeah,
it okay?
this is better now. Yeah.
Better? Okay. What I would like to say, the first thing, people are actually going with the lust of the food. This is what difference between the vegetarian and non-vegetarian. They understand misleadingly that vegetarian food is of very poor quality. It cannot give them enough proteins. Okay, it cannot give metabolism. It cannot produce the amino acid which is required for the body. This is what they're understanding. And recently it has been proven that even vegetarian food and equally plants food also can produce amino acid, proteins, etc., whatever the required for the body to survive on earth in a very good way. But the people who are eating non-vegetarian food is basically their lust and misleading about the health. The third thing is it has become some kind of a fashion of the fast food everywhere, all around the world. I have seen even in the South America also it is. And people want to eat non-vegetarian food, sitting with the girlfriends, etc. And that is the way, I mean, not only in other worlds, but in India also. So it has come the same fashion, same thing in India. However, although I would say that in India it is very less, but you are right. You are right that India is also actually moving ahead for this non-vegetarian food. So again, I would like to comment that there is campaign is required now. Some vegetarian and non-vegetarian food, I mean, plus and negative points on both the sides, and then we can compare and we can, I communicate better way that why vegetarian food is stronger or better. We can get some kind of marks, percentage kind of, or highlights over there, and we can go ahead for that.
Thank you so much, Rajmalji. That was an excellent explanation. There has been just one more question about whether this recording will be available. So the recordings are available on JCSF website. So as soon as we are done, Pragnesh Bhai is gracious enough to always put it there right away. Now with this, I like to close question and answer and then pass it on to Shamni ji for final words before we give it to Bharti Ben. Go ahead, Shamni ji.
I am very much thankful to Professor Rajmalji Jain for his excellent and very scientific lecture on non-violence. We have seen all the different scientific data, authentic data from his lecture, that how violence is creating so much problem before mankind, and what is the role of human beings in creating such kind of pandemics and ecological imbalance and environmental pollutions. We have to think of it and how we can revert from this kind of situations. So he has rightly indicated that this is the right time for the Jain community to take initiatives to deal with these global issues by promoting this principle of non-violence, which is for universal love, and also for taking care of all different type of species on the earth, inside the earth, outside the earth, on the earth, and in the environment. So it is very true. When we read Acharang Sutra especially, you will see that Mahavir starts teaching non-violence by teaching about all these microbes. He says that these are the microbes, first we have to take care of them, because they are making balance in the ecological system of the world. If you ignore these microbes, you are threatening your own existence. So Mahavir rightly and very clearly states in Acharang Sutra that Je loyam abhai khai se attanam abhai khai. One who overlooks the microbes, he overlooks his own existence. So this is very clear message from Mahavir, that how we can think of all different types of living beings, and especially of the micro living beings. In Pragyapana Sutra, we are reading right now Pragyapana Sutra, and we have found that there are 6 types of such micro living beings, and they are invisible to human beings. So they should also be taken care of in our day-to-day behavior, activities, whatever technological things we are using or electronic things we are using, we are killing thousands and millions of such micro living beings which are all everywhere in the environment. So Professor Rajmal Jain has clearly indicated how we are killing the living beings in the ocean, on the earth, inside the earth, and in the environment. And I would request Professor Rajmal Jain that you should make some academic policies for research and for promoting this education of non-violence, and how we can promote these kind of academic activities through different chairs of Jain studies which are open in US and everywhere in the India and abroad, other countries. So first we have to create awareness in the field of academic fields, then it will automatically spread to all different minds of the world. So I would request first you have to work out on the policies, or you have to work out some research, so that we can involve some new students, new researchers, newcomers in this particular area, and can create such kind of environment for awareness among the people or in the mind of the mass. So I am very much thankful for coming and giving the talk under the series of Acharya Mahapragya lecture series, birth centenary lecture series. Acharya Mahapragya was very much fond of promoting nonviolence in every field of life, every box of life, and he himself created such kind of theories and applications of nonviolence, how it can protect the planet, how it can protect the environment, how it can help to maintain the ecological balance. So we have a lot of things from him directly to guide us to proceed and to take some initiatives in this particular field. And you yourself has so many ideas and plannings in your mind. So we would request you to work out all those and start applying them in academic field especially, and also in mass. So thank you very much for this enlightened talk. I think everybody has enjoyed this talk, and everybody is looking for this presentation on website. Maybe hundreds of people and thousands of people will see this particular lecture and think of how non-violence can be the part of life.